You're listening to the I'm Busy Being Awesome podcast with Paula Engebretson, episode number 238. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, episode 238. How are you? Today, we are exploring a listener question all about following through and how we can follow through on the plans that we've made. How do we stick with these plans when there are things we genuinely want to do, but our brain has thoughts about it? Now, as a reminder, if you have a podcast topic that you want to hear me talk about on the podcast, please send it my way. I absolutely love hearing from you and knowing what is at the forefront of your minds, because it helps me make sure that I'm providing the most helpful information that you need right now. So if you have a podcast topic that you'd love to hear explored on the podcast, please let me know. You can drop me an email at paula@I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com and I will add it to the list. Now, today's email comes from Emily, and she writes, I would love to hear your thoughts on living in Laterland when struggling with ADHD paralysis. I love planning and I will do it as a comfort when I'm stuck on something. But when it comes time to do the things that I've planned, it doesn't always happen, the gym especially. I make amazing plans about when to go and what to do, but then when it comes up, I either don't do it or I feel pressure to do another undone thing instead. Okay. First of all, I love this name that she created so much, Laterland. We all know what this is, right? It is all a place that we have visited probably many times. Some of us have a vacation home here. Some of us maybe have our primary home here. We all know this land, this Laterland. And second of all, how relatable is this question? We have all been here, whether it's personal plans or work plans. We all know what it's like to fall into the Laterland, whether it's going to the gym or you have a goal of cooking at home more, or you have projects and organizing things you want to do around the house, running errands, making Amazon returns, right? We have all of these things that we want to do. We put it in the calendar and then Laterland strikes. Same thing with work. Whether you're writing up that report or you're working on the important but not urgent projects that your team needs, or creating that new marketing plan for your business or updating sales copy or something, we all know what it's like to put the thing we know we want to do on our calendar and we slip into Laterland. So what can we do here? How do we visit Laterland less often? So first and foremost, I think it's really important to get specific about why we are not actually doing the thing. We may have ideas around it, but many of us tend to just gloss over it of, I don't know, I never do the thing. I never follow through. I never stick to the plan. I make a plan and then I just don't do it. But we never actually pause to zoom in and figure out why, because we have so much judgment over it. We have so many critical thoughts that come to the foreground that it feels almost painful to slow down and check in and go, I wonder what's going on here. Why am I skipping this plan that I made? Because there are so many possible reasons, many of them that make sense. Some of them we might want to question, but what we want to do is really slow down and get clear on why we're not doing it. Maybe we feel pressure to do something else, like Emily mentioned. Maybe you were in the middle of another project and transitions are hard. Something else comes up on your schedule. It's time to switch. You've been in deep work and now it's time to do this next thing. And transitions are hard and you'd rather just stay in the thing you're doing. Maybe you simply forgot about it. You lost track of time. Maybe you just don't want to do the thing. Maybe it wasn't a full body yes. Or maybe it's uncomfortable to do it and you don't want to feel uncomfortable. It's so important to slow down and figure out specifically what the reasons are for why we're not doing whatever it is on our calendar or in our schedule, because we're going to solve for each of these situations differently. And again, that's why it's so important to identify the specific reasons for yourself. And you can find this out by simply asking yourself, okay, well, why didn't I stick with the plan to do XYZ? And be really specific here. Look at each situation. Be honest with yourself. And as always, there is no judgment allowed here. Okay. You are only allowed to approach this from a place of curiosity, because that is how we learn and grow. If we slap on a bunch of judgment on top of it, of course, we're not going to want to look at what's going on and the friction that's in the way. So what we need to do is remove that judgment and go, okay, there's a good reason here. It might not be a reason I want to keep, but there's a reason why, I'm thinking something, it has me feeling some resistance, and so I avoid doing the thing. This makes sense. What am I thinking about here? What is keeping me from taking action on this plan I made? And we're going to have so much curiosity, so much compassion, so that we can then solve for and support ourselves through whatever obstacles are in the way. So let's talk about some of the common reasons that I see come up quite a bit around why we do avoid our plans. The first huge obstacle that comes up is that we slip into unrealistic planning. Okay, we just are not creating realistic schedules for ourselves because, let's be real, everything is possible in Laterland. Math doesn't exist in Laterland. In Laterland, our mind can think, as long as I write words in my time-blocked section of the calendar, or as long as I put this on my to-do list, it should fit. I should be able to get it done because I wrote it here in this slot. And that sounds kind of legit. It kind of makes sense when we're not slowing down. Well, I put it in my calendar, I should just get it done. But that's not true. And what we end up doing is creating really unrealistic expectations for ourselves because, again, we forget that math exists and things literally take time. Let me give you a ridiculous example to put this into context. I can't block into my calendar, visit Australia from 10 till 11 a.m. today and expect to get there. I could put it in my calendar. I could write it, but it's not going to happen. I live in Minnesota. I say that. It's obvious. Your brain is thinking, duh, of course you can't just get to Australia in an hour. But we do the same thing with our schedules all the time. We put these really unrealistic demands in such small time frames, and it's just not realistic. So we need to get realistic about our schedules. Otherwise, when we're creating plans, we're essentially setting ourselves up to live in Laterland because there's literally not enough time to do all the things that we think we quote unquote should do in a day. So what we want to do here is start thinking about the specific projects or tasks or activities that we want to do, break down the steps of that process, and then estimate actual timeframes for each step. I know you all hate hearing this. My brain hates hearing it too, but that is what works. Okay? And I know it's challenging for our brains to be able to break down and sequence these things out. It is. It's extra challenging for our brains. It's really demanding on our executive functions. This is why I really love to use something like the Magic To Do app. You can type in goblin.tools in your search bar, which is such a weird URL, but that's all it is. Goblin.tools. Click return. And then it's going to pop up to Magic To Do. I think they also have an app that you can download from the App Store. And you can type in the thing you want to do, whether it's getting to the gym on time, whether it is creating project slides for work, whether it's making chicken for dinner. And you can click the little magic wand on the Magic To Do. And from there, it's going to break down all the steps for you. Now, you might have to make some edits. You might have to swap some things out because it doesn't know specifically, but it takes off so much of that heavy lifting and allows you to start from something rather than starting from a blank page, right? You just might have to make a couple of edits rather than breaking everything down yourself, okay? So I know it's challenging to break down the steps, but if you can use something like Magic To Do or some other support to help that process, I promise you this is going to make planning so much more realistic. Okay, so we're breaking down the steps and then we're going to put some time estimates next to it. Your brain's going to say, I don't know how long things take. And that's probably true. We don't know because we're time blind. That's why we need to start estimating times and then learning from them. So as I always mention, I tend to triple my estimation of what I think I need. And then that's usually pretty accurate if I've never done it before. If I've done it a couple times, but I just don't remember, then usually I double it. So if I think, oh, this will probably take me 15 minutes, I would allow for 45. And I know that's painful to think about, but also it's allowing you to really gather the data that you need to make more accurate estimations going forward. Okay. So we're going to break down the steps, estimate how long they actually take. And then from there, you can make sure that you're actually creating enough time in your schedule so that you can do the things, so that you're not permanently living in Laterland with completely unrealistic schedules and expectations for yourself. Okay, so that's one of the first main obstacles that I see come up, is that we're just not creating a realistic schedule for our lives and our current situations, our capacity, all the demands, that kind of thing. Another obstacle is one that Emily mentioned, which is that something else seems more important when it's time to do the thing that's on your schedule. I know this one is so relatable. I hear it all the time from people. I hear it all the time in my own brain. I know that it is so relatable. And the first thing we want to do is pause and question that thought. Is this actually true? Is something else more important? Sometimes it is. Okay. Sometimes we have a position at work or something where you do have varying priorities and things can shift on a dime, and we do need to do the other thing. Okay. So there is some nuance here, and we want to check in. Is this actually true? Maybe we do need to make a shift. And in fact, if this is something that happens often and we go, yeah, it is true, this is really important, and you notice that this is happening a lot and genuinely it is more important, we might want to slow down our planning process a little bit and think through all the different priorities on our list before we're writing out our schedule. Because if we are frequently forgetting the important items on our list, we want to make sure that we're capturing them and including them in our schedules when we're making them. Okay, so let's first look at that. Is it true? Maybe it is more important. And if so, if this is happening a lot, how do we make sure that we're incorporating those important things into our schedule more often so that we're not overlooking them? Now, also for many of us, it's not true. Okay. It's not true that the thing is more important than the thing that we had planned. Our brain is just falling for that reason. Okay. So if it's not true, if we pause and we go, okay, but is this true? And it's not, if my brain is thinking, okay, we planned to record the podcast, but it's really important that we break down the Amazon boxes right now because they're sitting in the hallway. And I go, no, that's really not true. We want to be on to our brains. Is breaking down the boxes actually more important here than getting the podcast recorded? Why do I think that? Is this a compelling argument? Do I like my reasons here? For me, the answer is no. I don't actually like my reasons. It's easier for me to break down boxes because I know the steps. I know exactly what to do. I know that it feels easy, as opposed to sitting down and trying to process through my thoughts and work through all the ideas and make sure they make sense in the proper order. It's way easier for me to get a pair of scissors and break down boxes. So no, I don't like my reasons. You could ask yourself, okay, what does future you think about this decision to do the other thing? Meaning, what does tomorrow you think if you stick to your schedule? And what does tomorrow you think if you do the other thing that seems to be quote unquote more important? What does tomorrow you think? What does a week from you now think? Right? In 1 week from now, what does that version of you think? How about a month from now? Will they want you to have recorded the podcast, or will they want you to have broken down those Amazon boxes? For me, future Paula always wants her to record the podcast. Okay. You can also check in with past you. Why did past me, when I made this plan, decide that recording the podcast was the most important thing? Why didn't I write breakdown boxes on Monday at 10 a.m.? Because I know that the podcast is the most important thing. Way more important than breaking down boxes. Is it possible that I can trust this past version of Paula, that she set me up for success? Can I trust me? Can you trust you, knowing that that past version of you had your long-term goals and objectives in mind when planning? They're on your team, right? They have your own back. They want you to win. So be careful with the thought that something else is more important. Now, again, occasionally it is. Sometimes things come up. But don't believe everything your brain tells you. And this is especially true when we are establishing new habits or routines, or we're trying something that's new or scary or unfamiliar, because it's science. Your brain is going to resist it. This is literally how we've been wired. It's how we have evolved as a species. Okay. The brain has evolved to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. Okay. Of course, your brain is going to do anything it can to avoid sticking to a new habit like going to the gym. Because when you're establishing this habit, there is very little pleasure in it. It can actually be quite painful, and it is literally exerting energy. Okay, so it goes entirely against the motivational triad that has allowed us to survive for so long. It is not allowing us to seek pleasure, avoid pain, or conserve energy. It's quite the opposite. Okay, now we're going to talk about what to do in a bit, but first, be on to your brain. Is this thing actually more important? Question that. Pause with that. And then the third obstacle that I often see come up is that we're putting things on our schedule, on our to-do lists, that we don't actually want to do. We're doing it because we think we should. So check in with yourself. Do you actually want to do this thing? Be honest. Because again, everything sounds incredible in Laterland. Everything is possible in Laterland. So many of us have been trained by society, by our experiences growing up, to essentially say yes to everything. We want to make everybody happy. We slip into people pleasing. We work really hard to make everybody else comfortable around us. So we say yes to things because we don't want to, quote unquote, disappoint anybody. And we scramble to make it work later. We say yes to all the things, we overcommit, and we get stuck. And we leave the problem for our future selves to deal with. We think, I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. Or, yeah, I mean, it'll probably be fun. I'll probably enjoy it when it's time to go. Or I know it'll be good to do. I mean, it doesn't sound great, but it'll be good. It'll be good to do. Or as we're planning, we'll think, well, I'll have energy for this next week. I'll have energy for this tomorrow. Things will be slower next week. And then we talk ourselves into it. But we don't actually want to do it. It's not a full body yes. So first, whenever we are making plans for our future, we want to ask ourselves, if this was happening today, would I have the energy and the time to do it? Would I have the energy and time to do this if it was happening in 20 minutes from now? If it was happening this afternoon? If not, I mean, unless something drastically changes in your schedule, probably we're going to feel the same from one week to the next. Things aren't going to magically slow down unless we're making drastic shifts. But this fantasy version of ourselves who has all the energy and all the enthusiasm and endless time in Laterland forgets that. So we tend to plan for them, that version of ourselves in Laterland who has all the time and all the energy and all the excitement. So we want to make sure that we're planning for your reality, for how you're feeling right now. Because probably tomorrow you is going to feel the same. So if you're willing to do it today and you have the time today, then great, you have the time tomorrow. But if somebody asks you to participate in some committee or something, and you're thinking, well, I mean, it doesn't start until February, things will probably slow down then. Well, unless you're making some changes, things aren't going to slow down. Unless you're literally taking things off your plate, things aren't going to slow down because everything's the same. So make sure that you're getting really honest with yourself there. Okay, are we planning for reality, or are we living in Laterland when we're creating those plans? Now from there, it's really important to get honest with yourself in asking, do I actually want to do this thing? Is this activity or project or request, is this a full body yes response? Or is this an intellectual yes? Is this an intellectual should? If it is a should, I would love to offer to get it off your list. Let's not put these shoulds on our list. It makes it so hard to do them, and we wrestle with our brain all day long to try and get it done. Now, I have an entire episode on this because I do realize it's a nuanced topic, and your brain is thinking, yeah, must be nice, Paula, that I can just say yes to only the things I genuinely want to do. I have responsibilities here. I promise I hear you. And we talk about all of this. It's in episode 172 called Procrastination, ADHD, and the Intellectual Yes. So I will link to that in the show notes, episode 172. Do check it out if this idea of a full body yes versus the intellectual yes or the intellectual should, if that's a new concept to you, do give it a listen. So you're checking in with yourself, right? And you're going, okay, is this a full body yes? If it is, let's pause and remember why that's the case. Why is this a full body yes? Why do you actually want to do the thing? Okay? One of my clients, you know who you are, she uses a phrase that I absolutely adore. Whenever she's thinking about plans that she knows she wants to do, but it might kind of feel hard in the moment, she calls them making a deposit toward her future self. She'll say, I'm making that deposit for myself. Yep, I'm going to do that. That's a deposit I'm going to make for myself. I love this framing. I think it's fantastic. So when you identify why you actually want to do the thing, so for Emily, who emailed in and asked about this topic, why do you want to go to the gym? What is the result that you get to create when you do stick to the plan? And it could be more of a quote unquote obvious reason of, I feel better, I have more energy, that kind of thing. And if that's your reason, amazing. But there could be so many more nuanced reasons as well. Maybe you work from home and you love going to the gym specifically because it allows you to connect with people in real life. And connection is a value of yours. So you're actually creating connection every time you go to the gym. Or maybe you have a personal goal of being able to deadlift a certain weight and you're dedicated to making that happen. So you're going to build your muscle gains. Maybe movement is a really powerful way for you to process through your emotions. It helps you regulate your emotions. And you love taking dance or yoga classes, the type of classes that allow you to really get into your body and move. So you're creating space for your emotional and physical health when you go to the gym. Remind yourself why. Why are you doing this? And then, I wish I could remember where I heard this tip, but I think it's brilliant. If I ever think of it, I will include it in the show notes. But once you think about why and you remember why you're doing this, write that reminder in your calendar. So when it pops up, it literally says, I'm creating connection for myself by going to the gym. This is such a powerful tool to help you tap into that why quickly and easily. All right. So we have our greater awareness of why we are skipping the thing that we planned. We've made adjustments to the calendar to ensure that we're not living in Laterland because of time blindness and these unrealistic fantasy schedules. And we've started noticing the stories that our brains have told us. And we've ensured that we actually do want to do the thing on our schedule. It is a full body yes. Now what? How on earth do we follow through? How do we stick with the thing when it's a full body yes? We have enough time. We do want to do it. So number one, as I just mentioned, remind yourself why you want to do it. As I said with Emily's example of getting to the gym, why do you want to do this? Why is it important to you? Write that down in your schedule. Reflect on how you're going to feel after you do it. Give yourself that clear vision. Why is it important to you? Step 2, get into the identity of this behavior. What does that even mean? That sounds weird. Okay. I actually plan to do a separate episode on this topic as well, but essentially start thinking about the identity of who you are. Okay, not the specific actions you're going to take, but who you are when you take those actions. So rather than I go to the gym 3 times a week, it's I'm a gym goer, I'm a gym regular, or I'm a weightlifter, I'm a runner, I'm a dancer, I'm a yogi. Before COVID, I was a very regular gym goer. I was one of those people who went to the 5:15 class each morning so I could get on the Pike and into my office before the commute time tripled from traffic. So I had stepped into the identity of I'm part of the 5 a.m. crew. That's who I am. That's just what I do. And when we can step into that identity, it can help us move in that direction more easily. And then step number 3, and I'm going to warn you in advance, this is not a fun part for most of us, okay? Step number 3 is to be willing to feel uncomfortable. So, as I mentioned, it is hard to go against evolution. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain and conserve energy. So, of course, when we're doing something new that's challenging, we're going to want to avoid it. Okay? So notice when that resistance comes in. Go, yeah, right on time. We're doing something new, so nothing's gone wrong. I just kind of expected it to show up. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop. Am I willing to lean in anyway? Am I willing to take that next step even though it feels a bit uncomfortable? Am I willing to pause, to feel that emotion of reluctance or disinterest or dread light, right? Knowing that this is a full body yes, and that I actually do want to make this deposit for my future self. Am I willing to pause, to lean in, to feel that feeling, and take the next step forward anyway? Now, this may sound like what? How? What? I don't even understand. So learning how to pause and learning how to be with those uncomfortable feelings and support yourself through them, it is a huge topic in and of itself. In fact, it's something that we explore over several weeks within my small group coaching program, We're Busy Being Awesome. So we talk about a very clear step-by-step process that allows you to slow down, to tap into that emotion, to move through the resistance of not wanting to do the thing to the other side. And we do it in a really gentle and loving way. So then we're not just shoving ourselves through and using willpower and force all the time, because that's exhausting and does not last. We learn how to do it in a really supportive way. Now, because this is a super nuanced situation, depending on the type of activity you want to do and what you're personally navigating and the specific emotions that are coming up, how big do they feel in your body? There's a lot of different ways that we can approach it. Okay. So if you want additional support around this, if you want support in tapping in and knowing if it's a full body yes or an intellectual yes, knowing whether you're actually creating an accurate schedule for yourself, or if you're creating a schedule for the fantasy robot version of yourself, or if you want support learning how to slow down and pause that think, feel, act cycle and actually check in before we just automatically skip what we planned and jump to the next thing. If you want support in learning how to do that, in learning how to pause and allow the emotion and keep moving forward on the plans you made, I would love to have you join us in We're Busy Being Awesome. If you are listening to this in real time, the next cohort begins in March. And I don't actually plan on doing another group until closer toward the end of the year. So I'm only offering We're Busy Being Awesome twice this year. So if you want to learn how to make strong plans that work for your brain and your life, and stick to those plans you made, and then actually follow through on them, so you are doing the things that matter most to you each day, be sure to get your name on the wait list. You can head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/group. Enrollment is limited, and when you're on the wait list, you are the first to know when doors open up, so you can make sure you get in there. So again, head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/group, add your name to the wait list. All right, for today, if you want to step out of Laterland and into action, I encourage you to focus on these 3 key steps. Number 1, remind yourself why you are doing the thing. Focus on why it's important to you, why you plan for it in your schedule, and even write it in your schedule. Why is this so important to you? What is it creating for you? Number 2, step into the identity of who you are as a person who does the thing. I'm a lifter. I'm part of the 515 crew. I'm a writer. Step into that identity. And step 3, acknowledge and support yourself through the inevitable resistance that is bound to come up as you're focusing on making this deposit toward your future self and how amazing you're going to feel once you've done it. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for us this week. And if you're ready to take these concepts and apply them to your life, if you're ready to learn how to make a plan, take action, and follow through in a way that works for your ADHD brain, so you have time in the day for what matters most to you, I invite you to check out today's show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/group, where you'll learn more about my small group coaching program, We're Busy Being Awesome. When you're there, add your name to the waitlist so you're the first to know when enrollment opens for the next cohort. Also, if you want to learn my step-by-step approach to locking in a routine and making it stick, be sure to take my free course called the ADHD Routine Revamp. You can tap through the link in the show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/routine to sign up. Until next time, keep being awesome. I'll talk with you soon.